That's a giant. Oh my God. It's all seats. You know what I mean? Like, you guys, I think so.
Close encounters with Bigfoot are rare, but those who claim to have experienced them describe moments of sheer terror, overwhelming awe, and even bizarre, unexplained phenomena. From spine-chilling growls to intelligent, almost human-like interactions, these encounters leave people questioning everything they thought they knew. But what really happens when you're in Bigfoot's presence? Let's break it down.
We are hunting Bigfoot.
Oh my gosh.
That attracts predators right there and has called in for us Bigfoot.
Welcome to BuzzFeed Unsolved Network. This is your one-stop destination for all things mystery, true crime, conspiracy, supernatural, and everything in between, including the hit series BuzzFeed Unsolved, Supernatural, BuzzFeed Unsolved, True Crime, and much more.
We are hunting Bigfoot.
Oh my gosh.
That attracts predators right there and has called in for us Bigfoot.
We are hunting Bigfoot. Oh my gosh. The eerie call echoes through the forest, a squawking sound meant to attract predators and maybe even something more. The team is deep in the woods, surrounded by darkness, with only their equipment and instincts to rely on.
You guys see that, right?
Whoa.
That's Bigfoot.
You guys see that, right? Arya whispers, eyes wide with a mix of fear and excitement. A shadow moves in the distance. Matt, ever the skeptic yet eager for adventure, takes a deep breath and pushes forward.
When did the kind of Bigfoot connection happen?
We were on a motorcycle trip and we were in the woods and talking about Bigfoot to each other.
The journey began with a simple conversation. When did the Bigfoot connection happen? Someone asks.
And we stopped and suddenly have a revelation because he knew about my Bigfoot experiences and he's had Bigfoot experiences.
Joey and his friend recount their experiences, moments that sent shivers down their spines. We were on a motorcycle trip, deep in the woods, talking about Bigfoot, he explains. Then suddenly everything changed. The tales continue, one more chilling than the next, revealing first-hand encounters with something unknown.
Lucky enough to call one in with a predator call when I was 18 years old, and he was from me to you. And he was holding brush apart with his arms, just looking right through.
I was lucky enough to call one with a predator call when I was 18, Joey admits. He was right there, just a few feet away.
We're gonna pour the plaster of Paris and it'll harden.
And then when you pour it, don't pour it directly on the print, pour it a little to the side so it rolls in. That way it won't disrupt.
We're gonna pour the plaster of Paris and it'll harden, Matt says as he prepares a cast. When you pour it, don't pour it directly on the print, Joey advises. Pour it a little to the side so it rolls in. That way it won't disrupt the shape, Matt chuckles. Good thing you said that. I was about to go right in like a swimming pool.
There's a story about one guy said that his friend shot at a Bigfoot as the Bigfoot was walking away.
The atmosphere shifts as Joey recalls a chilling story. There's this story about a guy who said his friend shot at a Bigfoot as it was walking away.
Turned around and looked at him, and he didn't know if he hit it or not. He thought he did, and then he kept walking, just didn't hurry his pace.
He was disappointed.
It turned around and looked at him. He didn't know if he hit it or not. He thought he did, but it just kept walking, didn't even hurry. The weight of the story lingers in the air, adding to the growing unease.
Before nightfall, Ray and Joey were nice enough to share with us some warm food and coffee. We then prepared for our final test of the night, calling a Bigfoot.
As the night grows colder, Ray and Joey offer some warmth in the form of food and coffee. But the real test is yet to come. The team prepares to make a call, an attempt to summon the legendary creature.
We are going to pick up the casts we made earlier of the coyote paw and the elk track. And now, when do I get to eat it? Whoa.
That's Bigfoot.
They retrieve their plaster casts from earlier, examining the eerie prints of coyotes and elk. Now when do I get to eat it? Matt jokes, but his humor is interrupted by a realization. Whoa, that's Bigfoot. The cast in his hands is technically a large foot, but is it proof of something more? The excitement is palpable as they move into the night. With thermal imaging cameras in hand, the group navigates the darkness.
We've had most of our experiences, Joey and I, and separately, most of our encounters have been after dark.
Joey and his team, seasoned veterans of night encounters, guide the way. We've had most of our experiences after dark, Joey explains.
So what we like to do is we set our clients up with, we have a couple pieces of night vision that we're going to use tonight.
So we set up with night vision.
We have one that works off of ambient light. Do it like this, and you can see things walking up on you if you want to, right? Also, Matt downloaded an app for a thermal.
It works off ambient light. If something's out there, we'll see it. The tension rises as the forest comes alive with mysterious sounds. Then, a sudden noise, a powerful, bone-chilling screech. "Did you hear that?" someone whispers. The flashlight beams cut through the trees, reflecting off something in the distance.
It was like eye shine for a second.
Yeah. Look, it's a glinting again. What is that?
It was like eye shine for a second, Matt says, voice unsteady. Yeah, see, Aria exclaims. It's glinting again. The eerie lights flicker in the darkness. What is that? The question hangs in the air, unanswered.
Look, there's 3 sets of eyes.
I see 2 sets.
Oh, they're all excited now. They're all coming. One at a time, please.
They're all calling the cops.
More eyes appear. Look, there's 3 sets of eyes, Matt points out. I see 2 sets, Ray corrects him, tension thick in the air.
Oh, me. Jesus Christ.
Then, a series of sounds, game calls squawking, distant movement, and a sudden, unmistakable noise. Oh, beep me, Aria gasps. Jesus Christ! The moment is electric. Look, they cry out, but the figure is gone, just like that.
Thanks so much for joining me on this.
It was my pleasure, minus the maggots. Only sad thing is that you didn't get to deliver on the promo you cut against Bigfoot.
The night draws to an end, but the adventure isn't over. Thanks so much for joining me on this, Matt says. Oh, it was my pleasure. Minus the maggots, comes the response. The only sad thing is you didn't get to deliver on the promo you cut against Bigfoot.
That's true. I didn't put his ass in a bag. Like I said I would.
Plenty of days ahead, though.
Matt smirks. That's true. I didn't put his ass in a bag like I said I would. His laughter is met with knowing glances. Plenty of days ahead, though. The chase isn't over. Not yet. Bye. We're gonna go kill Aria. Laughter fills the air, but the mystery lingers. Somewhere in the shadows, something watches.
Hey fam, ready for nightmares? Check out Knock Knock for the scariest, most bone-chilling encounters caught on camera. Link in the description. If you dare.
A search for Sasquatch in the Rocky Mountains and Pacific Northwest. Bigfoot is on the verge of discovery. Subscribe for weekly updates of Bigfoot sightings across these regions. In the Yukon, a chilling Bigfoot encounter was reported by Ernie McGregor, a 30-year resident and prospector.
Ernie McGregor, a 30-year resident of the Yukon, liked to prospect and gold mine with his family.
In 2009, Ernie and his wife Kim were on a gold prospecting trip in a remote area northeast of Haines Junction.
On one prospecting trip with his wife in 2009 in a remote area northeast of Haines Junction,
they parked their truck and ATVs and settled into their tent for the night.
On the night of the encounter around 10 p.m., they retired to the tent for the night.
Around 10 p.m., they retired for the night. Being summertime, it remained light until late. Around 1 a.m., they were awakened by a loud hooting sound followed by a deep, resonant bellow. The noise was alarmingly close, only about 100 yards from their tent. These eerie vocalizations continued for hours, coming from 2 different directions, suggesting they were surrounded. Suddenly, the sounds grew closer.
The sound was alarmingly close, around 100 yards from their tent. This lasted off and on for several hours.
And they began to hear popping or clapping noises. Fearful, Ernie exited the tent and fired warning shots into the darkness. The noises stopped, and whatever was out there retreated.
Ernie got out of the tent and fired some warning shots trying to scare them away, and it did.
Convinced they had been terrorized by a pair of Sasquatch, the couple hiked back to their truck the next day. Along the way, Ernie saw a large black figure moving from tree to tree, seemingly keeping pace with them. In 2015, Ernie returned to the area alone for a multi-day prospecting trip. When he returned to camp one evening, he found it completely destroyed. A powerful stench filled the air, a mix of wet dog, rotting flesh, and something unrecognizable.
In 2015, when Ernie was out prospecting alone for 4 or 5 days, on one of the days when he returned to camp, it was completely destroyed.
Shaken, Ernie quickly packed his belongings onto his ATV and left. These encounters permanently changed his life. He no longer enjoys camping as he once did, and is hyper-aware of every sound in the wilderness. The creature that stared him down looked anything but friendly.
These 2 encounters have permanently changed Ernie's life. He doesn't enjoy camping like he used to, and when he's out there, he wakes up.
Russell shares a terrifying encounter from 1992, when his parents lived in a remote cottage a mile outside Mayo, Yukon.
In 1992, my father and mother were very poor. We lived in a cottage a mile away from the small city of Mayo in Yukon, Canada.
His father worked tirelessly to save money so they could eventually move to a better place. Their only protection was their loyal German shepherd, Barney. One fateful night,
It was evening and was snowstorming. My mom was in the living room with me sleeping in her arms.
a monstrous roar echoed outside their home, waking Russell's mother and making baby Russell cry. His mother asked his father what it was, but he remained silent, grabbing a shotgun and instructing her to hide in the wardrobe with their baby. Through the window, he saw a massive creature staring directly at their home. But there wasn't just one. Two more figures lurked nearby, watching. One was jet black like the first, but the third was even larger, determined to confront whatever was outside.
Human-like tracks. He measured one to be 53 to 55 centimeters.
Russell's father stepped out, shotgun in hand. He discovered three distinct sets of human-like tracks, one measuring 53 to 55 centimeters, another 60 centimeters, and the largest over 70 centimeters. Following the tracks in the direction Barney had run, he made a devastating discovery. Barney's lifeless body, his head crushed. Judging by the damage, these creatures had easily overpowered the large German shepherd. Heartbroken, Russell's father buried Barney in their yard.
2 weeks after this event, my dad got enough money for us to move to the city of Whitehorse and buy a house there. We moved and lived there to this day.
2 weeks later, he had saved enough money to move his family to Whitehorse, far from the terror they had endured. Later, Russell's father reflected on what he had seen. The largest creature, covered in white fur, appeared old and slightly hunchbacked. He believed it might have been injured or suffering from age-related issues, as its tracks suggested it had been dragging one of its legs.
The big one may have had an old age-related physical disability or was injured and so was dragging its leg.
The Rocky Mountain Sasquatch Organization, RMSO, speculated that this could have been a sign of an aging Sasquatch with physical limitations. Regardless, the encounter left a permanent mark on Russell's family. These Yukon Bigfoot encounters continue to fuel speculation and belief in the existence of Sasquatch. Have you ever had a Bigfoot encounter or know someone who has? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Keep watching. We're going to keep on squatching. Hellbent Holler is a tech-driven, boots-on-the-ground investigation team focused on Sasquatch, Dogman, and the paranormal. Hailing from the Carolinas, Hellbent Holler is a two-person research team that investigates all manners of high strangeness in the southern Appalachians.
18 hours ago, we get this report that two guys were traveling down an old Forest Service road.
From the forests of the land between the lakes to the mountains of North Georgia, Hellbent Holler takes a tech-driven yet unconventional approach to exploring mysterious phenomena. The duo has researched Sasquatch, Dogman, anomalous lights, and wilderness paranormal activity. Hellbent Holler consists of Joe, who has spent the last 2 decades looking into the existence of Bigfoot in the southern states, and Jesse Lee, a longtime researcher of the paranormal and occult. The two members combine, and sometimes contrast, their research methods and philosophies on various phenomena, to create a unique and holistic approach to their search for answers.
Say Sasquatch is a thing that is so close to nature, like deer. When they know and sense a major weather event coming, it seems like they get out of Dodge, they go to safety.
Less than 18 hours ago, we received a report from this area. Here's what's crazy about it. 18 hours ago, we got this report that two guys were traveling down an old Forest Service road
When they saw a dark figure in the middle of the road, and it darted off to the right into the forest.
When they saw a dark figure in the middle of the road, it darted off to the right into the forest. They got in touch with us because they know about our channel. They've seen our channel before, and we decided to mobilize. What's crazy about this too is that less than 12 hours ago, a crazy storm hit. Here, we've got a bit of a path going off into the woods. Do you want to kind of go into this? Yeah, let's check that out. Hey, you got a lot of creek bed running back through here, so I can get my chest pan. There we go. All right, let me look over here real quick. Lots of old creek beds crisscrossing back through here, bo.
It's headed that way. Whatever this is, take a look. What does it look like to you?
Yeah, it does.
Looks like we're running into a lot of old creek beds through here. Now, areas like that are great for marking indentations very, very clearly.
Got a bit of a path going off into the woods here.
We do have a bit of a path. You want to kind of go into this?
Yeah, let's check that out.
Check this out right here. Now, this is in the middle of this roadbed, in the middle of this mud. So this got a deluge of water over the past 10 hours.
So this got a deluge of water over the past, 10 hours. This has just gotten a deluge of water.
This has just gotten a deluge of water, so this would have been gone. This is pretty recent. Now, it is still kind of washed out and faded a bit because it's taking on water right now.
So this would have been gone. This is pretty recent. Now it is still kind of washed out and faded a bit because it's taking on water right now.
But that is a very clear foot shape, isn't it? You can still see a little bit of the big toe mark.
But that is a very clear foot shape, isn't it?
You can still see a little bit of the big toe mark.
Yeah, right here.
Yep, you can still see a little bit of the...
Yeah, right here. You can still see a little bit of the big toe mark, but yeah, water is taking it away pretty quickly. But look, that's a print. That's fresh as all get out.
Footprint you left normally is not anywhere near as deep as that.
So, and then look where you're at. We're downhill right.
That's super fresh. Yeah, and this area is so undisturbed, such a short time ago. So this is exciting. This is something super fresh. Do you want to head in that direction that it's going?
So this is something super fresh. This is
you want to head in that direction that it's going?
Yeah, it's going that way. Let's, it looks like there's some...
Yeah, it's going that way. It looks like there are some strange land formations that way too. So let's do it. Let's follow the track, follow the path, take us on in. There is a path of travel here that we're following right now. Got a drop off right up here.
Honestly, that looks like a thing. Look at the...
Look how, this is almost like a huge print to me.
That's a big one, and that is definitely headed in that direction.
Yeah, but you see this kind of...
I don't know how far. Look at this. What's going on? Weird. All right, let's take a look at this.
So this is something super fresh. This is
you want to head in that direction that it's going?
Yeah, it's going that way. Let's,
That's been bent over and thrust into this collection of brush and vines. This is a living tree right here, and it's bent and broken. So this is a living tree. You can't snap anything off of it.
This is a living tree right here. And it's bent and broken, so this is a living tree. You can't snap anything off of it.
It's a living tree. This is a living tree. There's a lot going on here right now. There's a lot going on. I'm going to step out of the way so you can get some good shots of that. Watch out. Are you okay? Holes. Yeah, I just went in a couple inches right here. All right, get a shot of that. Just take a... We need to be real careful. I don't know what's going on here. Okay, my foot is just going down in.
You got the heel here, and then that inner part of that foot, that right foot right there. But there's a slide. You can see it in the mud here.
There's a pit, broken off at the base and leaned onto this as well. All of these are live trees. And then this other one has been bent over the live tree and has been pinned at the bottom here. This is bizarre.
18?
18 inches. Oh boy.
Yeah, so we're looking at the tip toe. Now listen.
This is a very complex situation here. I don't know what it is. There are some interesting bends over here I want to check out, and then we'll continue to follow this track.
A non-thing, but...
Honestly, that looks like a thing. Look at the...
Look out.
I'll go this way to check it out. You just follow me this way. Whoa, terrain's getting weird over here. There are some drop-offs, and then we're getting into some depressed areas over here.
Broken off at the base and leaned onto this as well. All of these are live trees.
And then this other one has been bent over the live...
Okay, so we got kind of a weird situation right here just adjacent to that other one. That is a dead tree. The one that's arched is dead. The roots were pulled out of the ground. The root ball is still attached. We're going to head over there in 1 second. Wind's getting worse. Yeah, we're going to need to kind of put it into high gear. The Freeman footage had long been a subject of debate, yet somehow it hadn't been explored in depth here before. Among the countless pieces of supposed Sasquatch evidence, this one stood out, not just because of what it showed, but because of the man who filmed it. Captured in 1994 by Paul Freeman, a U.S. Forest Service patrolman, the footage had a certain weight to it. Something that set it apart from the usual shaky, grainy glimpses of dark figures in the woods. And yet, its reputation teetered between being one of the most compelling pieces of evidence and just another blob squatch. But was that really fair? The footage began with an unsteady camera, shifting between dense trees and rough terrain. And then, there it was. A dark, hulking figure moved through the forest, its shape almost unnatural. Broad, heavy, with a strange fluidity to its motion. It wasn't just a man in a suit, at least not in any ordinary sense. It had bulk, a mass that seemed to shift with each step, as if its entire body was one singular unit, rather than a collection of moving parts. It was easy to dismiss at first glance, but the longer one stared, the more unsettling it became.
Oh, there he goes.
Freeman himself had always been a curious figure. He wasn't just some random hiker with a camcorder. He had experience tracking wildlife in the forests of Washington, specifically in the Mill Creek watershed east of Walla Walla. He knew what belonged in these woods and what didn't. And in the years leading up to the footage, he had made claims, bold ones, about finding tracks, following trails, and even encountering these creatures firsthand. To some, this made him credible. To others, it made him suspicious. The footage, however, spoke for itself. When stabilized, it became even more striking. The creature moved deliberately, as if aware of being watched. There was no frantic scrambling, no attempt to run. It simply strode forward with the kind of presence that suggested confidence rather than fear. It looked unnatural, but not in the way a man in a costume might. Something about it felt off.
Doesn't it? This was filmed by Paul Freeman in 1994. It's often considered the pinnacle of blob squatchery.
Freeman had described the creature's legs as disproportionately small compared to its body. And while the footage didn't provide a perfect view, there was a sense that this wasn't a typical human frame. The shape was difficult to define, shifting slightly with the camera's motion, and yet it remained imposing. Scrubbing through the footage only made it clearer. This wasn't just an ordinary movement pattern. There was something distinct about it, something that set it apart.
Obviously, Bigfoot have arms and legs and a head and stuff, so please don't misunderstand me, but I think you know what I mean.
Something that set it apart. Skepticism surrounded the footage, as it always did with sightings like this. Dr. Jeff Meldrum, an expert in primate locomotion, was one of the few professionals who took a serious look at the evidence. Initially, he didn't trust what he was seeing. It was too convenient, too well aligned with everything he had studied.
There's about 6 minutes of footage before it makes its appearance. He also claimed that the trackway he was filming wasn't particularly good.
Bigfoot evidence was never this clear. It was supposed to be frustratingly vague, always just beyond reach. And yet, here it was. Freeman had spent 6 minutes filming tracks before the creature appeared. He even admitted that the trackway itself wasn't particularly impressive. Stranger still, He had used old film instead of fresh tape, which could have improved the footage's quality. Was that suspicious? Maybe. But sometimes things just happened that way.
Quality would be higher had it been new, and you could say that's sus, but it's also life. The videographer, Paul Freeman, was born in 1943 and passed away in 2003.
What caught Meldrum's attention most weren't just the footprints Freeman had collected over the years, but the details within them. Marks so intricate they seemed impossible to fake. Dermal ridges, subtle scarring, even signs of wear that remained consistent across multiple tracks. One footprint in particular stood out. As the drizzle fell over the print, something unexpected happened. The skin texture, barely visible, began to fade before Meldrum's eyes. It was as if the moisture was erasing a real imprint, rather than exposing an artificial one. That was difficult to ignore.
Scarring on the dermals that remained consistent over years, so much so that individuals could be rather easily identified.
Even more perplexing was a partial footprint. Only the front half pressed into the ground, the heel lifted mid-stride. If it were made by a rigid fake foot, the entire sole would have made contact. Instead, it moved as a real foot would, shifting weight from front to back, bending in a way that suggested something alive had left it behind. Then there was the knuckle print.
Curled over protruding stones, while in others, the toes pushed the stones deeper into the ground. The same stamp can't do both.
Freeman had once shown Meldrum what he believed was one of the most detailed toe impressions he had ever seen. But when Meldrum looked at it, his reaction was immediate. That wasn't a foot. It was a fist. A knuckle print, belonging to something that had pressed its hand into the ground with force. If this was a hoax, it was an oddly detailed one. Why go through the trouble of fabricating an anatomical feature that even the hoaxer himself didn't recognize for what it was?
Find that Dr. Meldrum found that day was a partial print, and he said it would simply have been impossible to stamp without the other half making contact.
This was where skepticism became tangled with curiosity. If Freeman had faked this, he had done so in a way that suggested either an absurd level of knowledge or complete coincidence. And if he hadn't faked it, then what exactly were people looking at? The inevitable question always surfaced: where was the body? It was the argument that skeptics clung to the most. If these creatures existed, why hadn't anyone found definitive remains? The answer, however, wasn't as simple as people assumed. Tracking wasn't easy. In fact, it was an ancient skill that few had truly mastered. Animals didn't just leave their remains out in the open. In the remote wilderness of Washington state, nature reclaimed everything. A body left to the elements would vanish faster than people realized, broken down by scavengers, soil, and time itself.
One such example of this conundrum was when Freeman showed Meldrum a cast of what he said were some of the best toes he'd ever cataloged. And Meldrum said, "No, that's a fist. That's a knuckle."
The absence of a body wasn't proof of absence. It was just an inconvenience, one that made belief harder but not impossible. It was easy to dismiss, just as it was easy to get lost in the details that made it compelling. Tracking was difficult, requiring skill, patience, and time, 3 things most people didn't have. It was one thing to speculate from a distance, but how many people could truly afford to drop everything and march into the mountains for weeks on end? Washington's forests weren't forgiving. The terrain itself fought against you. Searching for definitive proof wasn't just about belief, it was about endurance.
Eventually he'd come to it, or something to that effect, though usually the verbiage is a bit more on the rude side. Well, 1, tracking is hard.
And that was the question at the heart of the Freeman footage. Was it real? Or was it just another footnote in the long, frustrating search for the unknown? It was easy to dismiss, just as it was easy to get lost in the details that made it compelling. The answer, as always, hovered somewhere in the space between doubt and wonder. But for those who had seen it, the raw, unfiltered movement of that dark figure in the trees, it was difficult to shake the feeling that maybe, just maybe, they were looking at something they weren't meant to see.
witnesses, and a plethora of pieces of evidence that span too much time and distance to ignore. But the fossils aren't there.
Peter Kane Dog Training has been known for sharing unusual and sometimes controversial content. But this time, he presents something truly astonishing: a juvenile Sasquatch frozen since 1953. He claims that this creature has been preserved using dry ice, with slabs underneath and granular dry ice on top. For those unfamiliar with dry ice, he advises looking it up.
Sort of looks like a Christ figure laying there. When my father shot the Bigfoot, September 23rd, 1953, he shot more than one.
According to Peter, his father shot the Bigfoot on September 23, 1953. However, this wasn't the only one. Multiple Sasquatch were involved in the encounter. When they began cutting up the larger ones, a juvenile suddenly appeared. It reacted in distress upon seeing its deceased parents and attempted to escape, but was shot in the back.
And when they were cutting they started cutting the big ones up, this small one, this juvenile, appeared.
The male and female Bigfoot were simply too large to transport out of the swamp, so they were cut up for easier handling. However, the juvenile was different. It was smaller, yet still a massive creature, estimated at over 300 pounds. Initially, they planned to transport it whole, but when they went to retrieve the body, they discovered it was still alive. At that moment, they debated whether to keep it alive.
And when the juvenile saw that the mother and father were dead, the juvenile took off and they shot this one in the back.
Peter recounts that his father and his group even considered selling the creature to the St. Louis Zoo. However, the Sasquatch was not as lifeless as they believed. It had merely been stunned and later regained consciousness. The sheer size of the creature was intimidating, as it took 4 people just to move it. Its feet were distinct, with separated toes, and it had enormous hands. Peter describes how his father witnessed it behaving erratically before they ultimately euthanized it.
Now they continued cutting up the male and female Bigfoot because they couldn't get them out of the swamp. They were too big. This is a juvenile. It's like this would be a very large human.
Despite its injuries, the Sasquatch displayed remarkable resilience. Peter highlights its physical features, its hands, eyes, and other anatomical details that distinguish it from any known animal. He points out the creature's large testicles, reinforcing his belief that this was an entirely different species, far removed from any human or primate we currently recognize.
The girth on this animal, it's gigantic. It's over 300 pounds. It's a big animal. So they were cutting up the adults.
Peter recalls his father's concerns that the creature could come back to life. During the process of cutting up the larger Bigfoot, he noticed that their muscles twitched and their eyes occasionally opened. This led him to believe that the Sasquatch might have some kind of hibernation ability, making him anxious that the juvenile might not be fully dead.
And they were gonna transport this one whole. And when they went to go get it to put it in the boat, they noticed that it was still alive. So they were thinking, well, we'll try and keep it alive.
His father was not only worried about the Sasquatch reviving, but also about the possibility of someone discovering the juvenile's location. He feared that either the government or extraterrestrial beings would intervene and take the body away. Peter suggests that Bigfoot might not be of earthly origin, but rather an extraterrestrial species.
I know that my dad said that they had plans initially to talk to the St. Louis Zoo and sell it to the St. Louis Zoo.
To support his claims, Peter provides a close-up of the Sasquatch's eye and even showcases one of the guns used in the encounter. Though he isn't sure if this particular weapon was responsible for taking down the juvenile, he confirms that it was used to shoot at least 1 or 2 of the creatures.
But the beast that they thought was dead was just stunned, and it came back alive. You can't make judgments about my dad.
Peter then shifts to revealing more about the storage of the Sasquatch. He explains that it is kept in an underground bunker, one of many built by his father, who was a survivalist. The bunker is located somewhere in New York, though Peter refuses to disclose the exact location. He warns that no one will ever find it.
Look at that. If that creature was coming at you, you would do the same thing. That is a very large animal. You know, like I said, it's way over 300 pounds. It's probably over 350 pounds.
He also mentions that an infant Sasquatch was involved in the event. According to his father, the mother Sasquatch had killed the infant, although the reason remains unclear. This revelation adds yet another layer of mystery to the entire story.
Yes, and the toes are separated. And my dad said the thing went apeshit and started, trying to hit everybody, grabbing stuff, and they couldn't control it, so they had no other option.
Colorado. Bigfoot is a YouTube channel dedicated to uncovering the mysteries of the unseen world. With over 73.9K subscribers and more than 1.7K videos, the channel dives deep into the search for Bigfoot, documenting compelling evidence that raises questions about what truly exists in the remote wilderness. The man behind the channel has spent years exploring the most secluded regions, capturing footage that challenges conventional understanding. This is one of those journeys, an encounter that stands out among all the rest.
Oh my God. Wait for this. Well, this confirms everything, John. I mean, this is just unbelievable.
Deep within the vast forests of Colorado, the air was thick with anticipation.
Until this happens. I gotta get a video that no one else in the world can do, okay? And what did I just do?
The camera lens focused, capturing something rare. Something that, according to him, no one else had ever managed to document quite like this. "Oh my God, wait for this. This confirms everything," he murmured, his voice filled with restrained excitement. He knew that in this moment he might have recorded something irrefutable. For years he had been on this quest, pushing himself to get the one video that no one else could. And now, it seemed, he had it.
Look at that. Oh my God, you guys. I have like goosebumps inside my body just for myself of seeing that.
As he zoomed in, the weight of the moment settled in. "Look at that," he whispered.
That's a giant. Oh my God. It's all seats. You know what I mean? Like, you guys, I think so.
I have goosebumps just seeing this myself. The realization hit. This was no ordinary footage. It was something different.
People take it for granted what you're seeing. Nobody else in the world is going to show you that to you. Is it because it's me? No, but it's where I live.
Something that couldn't be dismissed easily. He acknowledged that many might take these sightings for granted, but he didn't. He knew the rarity of what he had captured. Nobody else in the world is going to show you this. Because it's me. Because it's where I live. This is what I do.
I see it. You guys, look, they are...
Moving deeper into the forest, he sensed an unseen presence. One that had deliberately led him away before. "They don't want me seeing this," he muttered, recalling past experiences where he had felt an inexplicable force guiding him away.
Here's the thing. They didn't bring me over here. They don't want me seeing this.
I did.
I see how I missed it. I must see this stuff you cannot see. I've been as close as real close.
This time, however, he had caught something. The footage didn't rely on whistling sounds or vague shapes. It was clear. The silence was even more telling. He and his companion had their food out, expecting movement.
Must have went up. I got super zapped. They brought me away from this. They weren't whistling. We had the Jays come in. They just came in, looked at us, and left. Not one sound.
But what they got was something different. A silent observation. Whatever was out there had made its presence known without making a single sound.
In need of just a little bit more of a push. Am I trying? What is that? What do I gain by... So anyway, look at this.
Examining an ancient trident-shaped tree structure, he speculated on its origins. If the wood on that trident was tested, it would be impossible to accurately date. It's been here for centuries, maybe even longer.
Trident was tested. I mean, it's impossible to really date it. You have to take all the conditions. Remember, they rarely see water here. I mean, this thing is hundreds and hundreds. I would say on the it can't be any younger than 500.
The dry conditions preserved it in a way that defied typical decay. This tree was part of their world. They make these structures when they're little, and they last. His words carried a certainty built on years of experience.
If I say 1,000, it seems long, but obviously it's been moved since. But this tree has been...
A belief that the patterns and structures found in these forests weren't just random. They were intentional.
Oh, they're just popping in right there. Look, congregation, they all hang out here.
Pausing, he introduced John, a seasoned observer from the UK who had spent years studying similar phenomena. Most of you know John. He doesn't seek attention. He just documents what he finds. John, a railroad supervisor.
So let me just introduce John for those of you that do not know. Most of you do. John's famous in Energy Overload. He's
had encountered inexplicable occurrences in different parts of the world, yet nothing quite compared to what they were seeing now.
Doesn't seek attention, doesn't put it on YouTube, nothing. So most of the people watching know who John is, but if you don't, he's from the UK.
He's one of the hardest workers I know, he added, emphasizing John's dedication to understanding.
To there, I think. But I never saw any of that stuff. Did you see the way that looked?
Yeah. What lay beyond the ordinary, what they discovered next, was unlike anything before. It's like an elevator, just moving. The way the environment shifted before their eyes was unsettling. It wasn't just about footprints or structures.
Exactly, mate. It's like an elevator, a portal.
No, I meant that. The trident.
There was a pattern to the way things moved. He struggled to put it into words, but the footage spoke for itself. Insane. Just walk, he muttered, still processing what he was witnessing.
Watch this. Without over-editing, trying to zoom and play it, just when I replay this, just watch right there. You can watch him. He closes his eyes.
Zooming in on a specific point, he noticed movement. Watch this. He closes his eyes, he pointed out.
I'm so sorry. So if you watch, you can see he'll blink or close his eyes. There's also clearly one right...
It wasn't just one figure, there were two. There's another one, right on the other side of the tree. You can see him too. He enhanced the view just enough to make it clear. I knew it.
On the other side of the tree too, you can see as well. I'll just do a quick zoom so you can tell. But yeah, there's two of them right there. I knew, so...
He's the one hitting me with the big-time energy, he said, referring to the overwhelming sensation he often experienced in these encounters. This wasn't just about seeing something, it was about feeling it.
In the mud or something. I've filmed, 5,000 impressions if they're actually real footprints. Bone.
He had filmed thousands of impressions over the years, but what they found that day was different.
Wow. Smiley tit.
Look at these footprints, he said, crouching down to examine them. These weren't ordinary tracks. The depth, the shape, the sheer size.
You're not by any chance zooming on a tree, are you?
Zooming on them, mate, over there.
It all pointed to something large, something powerful. These are real footprints.
Because we're leaving, they're all starting to come on now. Waiting for us to go.
Bone structure, weight distribution. You can see it all right here.
But I really wasn't kidding. What's wrong with you? Try doing this. Try being by yourself.
Standing alone, he spoke to the camera, addressing those who doubted the existence of what he was documenting. Try doing this. Try standing in front of something unknown every day of your life, filming it, knowing it's watching you just as much as you're watching it.
Standing in front of aliens, filming them every single day of your life. Sometimes I know he's over there invisible, so I'm going to show him to you, right? But I do it.
His voice carried the weight of experience, the countless hours spent in isolation, searching for answers that most people never even thought to ask.
You don't have to come back, but look. Can you see that thing?
What?
That mushroom. It's like crazy looking.
He turned his attention to something peculiar. That mushroom. Look at it. It's different, like nothing I've ever seen before. The forest was filled with anomalies, subtle but significant.
That thing looks... Are you serious? Who's your good boy?
These details, seemingly minor on their own, built a bigger picture. Are you serious? That thing is strange. Did it die? These are worth money. They're rare.
You don't have to see it. It's right there in front of you. He's here. The whole ground moved underneath me.
Then something happened. The ground beneath him shifted, not in a dramatic way, but just enough to make his heart race. The whole ground moved underneath me, he said. Not like an earthquake. It was different.
But not like a stomp. It was like an accident. Yes, look at this. This is the only place in the world, I think that where you can find their petrified structures,
He scanned the area, knowing that whatever was causing this wasn't visible, at least not in a way that human eyes could easily perceive. As the day came to an end, he reflected on what had just transpired. Listen to me. This is legit. His voice was steady, but the emotion was evident.
I have more worlds, real worlds of Sasquatch than anyone in the world.
Look at that. You see it, right? He turned the camera towards the evidence, letting the footage speak for itself. This is what we came for. And now, you've seen it too. The search continues. The unseen world remains just beyond reach, waiting for those willing to step into the unknown.
Are you little guy? Hey, listen to me. Listen to me.
Got a legit. It's a legit one.
It's legit, family.
Yeah. Look at that.
Far from the hum of civilization, a man, his wife, and their daughter had built a cabin with their own hands. It was more than just a home. It was a watchtower in the heart of the unknown, a place where mystery and reality blurred. They weren't just living in the woods. They were searching. For years, stories of giant, elusive creatures had echoed through the mountains. The locals whispered about the shadows that moved between the trees, the guttural sounds carried by the wind, the enormous footprints that led to nowhere. The family had heard the tales, but they wanted proof.
I'm about to give you a detailed look at all the Bigfoot evidence that humans have discovered to date.
One evening, as the fire crackled and the night stretched into a thick, consuming blackness, the man adjusted his camera. I'm about to show you everything we've gathered so far, he said. The evidence wasn't just hearsay. Footprints, DNA, eyewitness reports. These weren't just random encounters. They were threads in a pattern stretching back centuries. This isn't just a local legend, his wife murmured, scanning through old reports. It's everywhere, from the Pacific Northwest to the Great Lakes, from the Appalachian Mountains to the forests of Canada. The stories were eerily similar. Seasoned hunters, law enforcement, even military personnel, people trained to observe, not to imagine, had all claimed to see something.
Plus a whole lot more that's probably being kept from us. Bigfoot, Sasquatch, Yeti, the wild man of the woods.
One of the most chilling encounters came from a hunter in British Columbia. He had watched, frozen in place, as something impossibly tall, covered in thick brown hair, stepped effortlessly through the trees.
These names have echoed across cultures and continents for centuries, describing a creature that science has yet to classify, but thousands of witnesses.
Its stride was too fluid, the hunter had said, like it wasn't even touching the ground. The man exhaled, staring at the footage on his screen. It's like they know how to stay hidden, he muttered.
With most sightings occurring in the Pacific Northwest, the Appalachian Mountains, and the Great Lakes region.
Then there were the sounds. Ron Moorhead, a researcher, had once captured eerie, guttural chatter deep in the Sierra Nevada wilderness.
These reports aren't just from casual hikers or over-enthusiastic campers either. They include stories from seasoned hunters, police officers.
Experts had analyzed the recordings. They didn't match any known language. We not only saw movement, Moorhead had said, But we heard something talking.
Some of the most intriguing evidence for Bigfoot comes in the form of audio recording, capturing eerie sounds that experts have struggled to explain.
But what truly unsettled the family were the indigenous stories. For generations, tribes had spoken of a being that wasn't just an animal, but a force of nature, a guardian, a predator, or something in between.
Was walking on two legs, taller than any human I've ever seen, covered in dark brown hair. Its stride was effortless.
The night outside the cabin felt even darker. The wind rustled the trees, but it wasn't just the wind.
Almost fluid, and it turned to look at me for just a moment before vanishing into the tree line. End quote.
You hear that? The man's wife whispered. His daughter leaned closer to the window, her voice barely above a breath. It's out there, isn't it? He didn't answer.
For many indigenous communities, Sasquatch is more than just a creature. It is a symbol of the wild, untamed spirit of the land.
The deeper they went into the research, the more unnerving the evidence became. Footprints, some over 20 inches long, found in places no human could have walked.
The prints measured 13 inches in length and showed a stride pattern too long for a human.
Videos, figures moving through the trees just out of reach of clarity. The infamous Patterson-Gimlin film, still unexplained after decades of scrutiny. And then, the recordings.
To their reputations, these individuals consistently describe similar creatures and behaviors. The sheer volume and consistency of these reports.
Somewhere in the mountains, a deep guttural growl had been captured. It was low, powerful, unlike anything science could classify. Experts had studied the vocal range, the frequencies. Whatever had made that sound had lungs far larger than a human's. It's not a bear, the man muttered. It's not anything we know.
Well, the Paul Freeman footage presents another compelling encounter with what appears to be a large, hairy figure.
The most controversial story came from a hunter named Smeja, who claimed to have shot a Sasquatch.
A hunter who claimed to have recovered flesh and hair from a Sasquatch he encountered in the Sierra Nevada mountains.
He described it as massive, covered in dark brown hair, with human-like hands and feet, but larger. Panic had taken over, and he had left the body behind.
Smeja described the creature he shot as, quote, massive, covered in dark brown hair, with hands and feet like a man.
I didn't know what I was looking at, he had said. I just knew I had to leave. But what if he wasn't lying? There was also the Minnesota Iceman, a supposed Bigfoot-like creature frozen in ice, displayed in the 1960s.
It was a supposed Bigfoot-like creature, frozen in ice, displayed in the 1960s by carnival owner Frank Hansen.
Respected scientists had examined it, but before further research could be conducted, it mysteriously disappeared, replaced with a replica.
Both respected scientists examined the frozen creature before it was replaced with a replica. Dr. Uvelmans wrote, quote,
had someone hidden the truth? The man stared out into the darkness beyond the cabin. For years he had searched for the truth. Now the truth was staring back. Maybe Bigfoot was just a myth. Maybe it was just folklore, just stories passed down through generations. Or maybe it was standing right outside their door. So, what do you think? The man asked the camera.
If you want to show me extra support and contribute to future projects, I'll leave a link to my Buy Me a Coffee page in the description. Thanks for watching.
Legend or reality? The answers were out there, waiting. So, what do you think? Are these encounters proof that Bigfoot is real, or just the result of overactive imaginations? Have you or someone you know ever experienced something unexplainable in the woods? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I want to hear your theories. And if you enjoyed this dive into the unknown, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell for more. Until next time, stay curious, and maybe don't wander too deep into the forest alone.